Midnight Delivery, the customer who never ordered. Part 1, The Opening, a night like any other. The city at midnight was a different beast, a sprawling maze of sodium-lit streets and shadows that clung to the edges of my headlights. I gripped the steering wheel of my beat-up Honda, the hum of the engine a familiar lullaby after months of working the graveyard shift. My name's Alex, 23, part-time delivery driver, part-time dreamer, full-time broke. The gig wasn't glamorous, but it paid for gas, rent, and the occasional coffee to keep my eyes from drooping at 2 a.m. tonight, though, the air felt heavier, like the city was holding its breath. The dashboard clock blinked 11:47 p.m., its green digits mocking my exhaustion. I'd been at it since dusk, weaving through the urban sprawl, dropping off greasy bags of burgers and soggy tacos to bleary-eyed night owls. The radio crackled with a lo-fi beat, some indie track I didn't recognize, its rhythm syncing with the flicker of streetlights overhead. Outside, the world was a monochrome painting, gray pavement, gray buildings, gray sky bruised with clouds. A lone pedestrian shuffled along the sidewalk, hood up, hands buried deep in their pockets. I wondered briefly what their story was, then pushed the thought away. Curiosity was a luxury I couldn't afford on nights like this. Another run, Alex, I muttered to myself, my voice barely cutting through the hum of the car. Just keep moving. My reflection in the rearview mirror looked hollow, dark circles under my eyes, a 5 o'clock shadow creeping past midnight. I ran a hand through my messy hair, trying to shake off the fog settling in my brain. The delivery app on my phone sat silent, its screen dimmed like it was as tired as I was. I tapped it, half expecting it to crash again. The thing had been glitchy all week, dropping orders or sending me to addresses that didn't exist. Come on, don't screw me over tonight. As if on cue, the phone vibrated, a sharp buzz that jolted me upright. The screen lit up with a new order, the notification chime unnervingly loud in the quiet car. I frowned, squinting at the details. Burger, fries, no drink. Delivery to 47, Willow Lane. Estimated time, 20 minutes. The name of the street didn't ring any bells, which was odd. I'd driven every corner of this city, from the neon-soaked downtown to the crumbling suburbs. Willow Lane. That sounded like something out of a small-town horror flick, not a place in my delivery radius. I tapped the map icon, watching as the app plotted a route. The red line snaked through familiar roads before veering into a part of town I rarely visited, the outer edges, where the city gave way to overgrown lots and sagging houses. Great, I groaned, already picturing a long drive for a measly tip. The order had a note attached, which wasn't unusual but still caught my eye, customer lives alone. Leave at door if no answer. Something about it felt off, like a line of dialogue delivered too deliberately in a play. I shook my head, chalking it up to fatigue. You're overthinking, man. Just do the job. The radio switched tracks, a low drone of static creeping in before a new song started, an eerie instrumental that seemed to pulse with the city's heartbeat. I turned it down, the sound grating on my nerves. My phone buzzed again, another notification from the app. Order confirmed. Pick up at Dino's Diner. I knew the place, a 24-hour greasy spoon a few blocks away, its neon sign perpetually flickering like it was on its last legs. I shifted gears and pulled onto the road, the tires humming against the asphalt. Driving through the city at this hour was like navigating a dreamscape. The streets were mostly empty, save for the occasional taxi or delivery bike darting past. Storefronts stood shuttered, their windows reflecting slivers of moonlight. A stray cat bolted across the road, its eyes glinting like tiny lanterns before it vanished into an alley. I felt a pang of unease, though I couldn't pin it to anything specific. Maybe it was the late hour, or the way the clouds seemed to press lower, suffocating the stars. Or maybe it was just me, projecting my own restlessness onto the world. Dino's Diner came into view, its red and yellow sign buzzing faintly against the night. I parked in the lot, the gravel crunching under my tires. The diner's windows glowed with a sickly fluorescence, casting long shadows across the pavement. Inside, I could see a lone waitress wiping down the counter, her movements slow and mechanical. A trucker sat at a booth, hunched over a cup of coffee, his face obscured by a baseball cap. The scene felt frozen, like a photograph left to fade. I grabbed my phone and stepped out, the cool air biting at my skin. My breath fogged in front of me, curling like smoke before dissolving. The night was colder than I'd expected, the kind of chill that seeped into your bones and made you wish for a thicker jacket. I shoved my hands into my pockets and headed for the diner's entrance, the bell above the door jingling as I pushed it open. "Yo, order for Willow Lane." I called out, my voice sounding louder than I meant in the near-empty space. The waitress, her name tag read Marge, glanced up, her eyes tired but kind. She looked about 50, with graying hair pulled into a messy bun and lipstick that was a shade too bright for the fluorescent lighting. "Yeah, hon, it's ready," she said, nodding toward a paper bag on the counter. "You're out late tonight, huh?" "Always am," I replied, forcing a half-smile. I grabbed the bag, the warmth of the food seeping through the paper. The smell of fries hit me, comforting in its familiarity, though it did little to ease the knot in my stomach. "Know anything about Willow Lane?" "Never heard of it." Marge paused, her rag hovering over the counter. For a split second, her expression shifted, something guarded, like she was weighing her words. "It's out there," she said finally, her voice softer. "Quiet area. Not much to it." She turned back to her cleaning, but the hesitation lingered in the air, sharp and unspoken. "Thanks," I said, unsure why her response left me unsettled. I headed for the door, the bell jingling again as I stepped back into the night. The bag felt heavier than it should, like it carried more than just a burger and fries. I tossed it onto the passenger seat and slid behind the wheel, glancing at my phone. The app's map was still open, the red line pulsing like a vein leading to Willow Lane. I tapped accept delivery and started the engine, the rumble grounding me for a moment. As I pulled out of the lot, I caught a glimpse of Marge through the diner's window. She was staring after me, her rag still in hand, her face unreadable in the harsh light. I told myself it was nothing, just a tired woman at the end of a long shift. But the image stuck with me, a splinter in my thoughts as I drove deeper into the city's fringes. The streets grew narrower, the buildings sparser. Chain-link fences replaced storefronts, their metal glinting dully under my headlights. The radio faded to static again, no matter how many times I fiddled with the dial. I gave up, letting the silence settle over me like a second skin. My phone was my only companion now, its screen glowing faintly with the route. 17 minutes to destination, it read. I pressed my foot harder on the gas, eager to get this over with. The city was shedding its urban skin, transforming into something rawer, less tamed. The houses I passed were older, their paint peeling like scabs, their lawns choked with weeds. Streetlights were few and far between, their bulbs either burnt out or flickering like they were gasping for life. I rolled down my window, hoping the air would clear my head, but all I got was the scent of damp earth and something faintly sour, like rotting leaves. I thought about calling my roommate, Jake, just to hear a familiar voice. He'd probably laugh, tell me I was being paranoid over a late-night delivery. "Dude, it's just a burger," he'd say, his voice thick with sleep. But my phone stayed in its cradle, the urge to connect outweighed by a stubborn need to prove I could handle this. Besides, Jake didn't get it, the way the night shift wore you down, turned every shadow into a threat, every stranger into a story you didn't want to hear. The app chimed again, pulling me back to the present. Turn left in 500 feet. I obeyed, guiding the car onto a road that barely deserved the name. It was more of a path, flanked by overgrown shrubs and skeletal trees that clawed at the sky. The sign for Willow Lane loomed ahead, its letters faded but legible in my headlights. My pulse quickened, though I couldn't say why. It was just a delivery, I reminded myself. Drop the bag, get out, move on. But as I crossed the threshold into Willow Lane, the air seemed to shift, a subtle tightening, like the world was watching. The houses here were relics, their windows dark and hollow, their porches sagging under the weight of neglect. No dogs barked, no curtains twitched. It was as if the street existed outside of time, untouched by the city's pulse. I checked the app again, my thumb hovering over the screen. 47, Willow Lane. Arrive in 2 minutes. The bag on the passenger seat sat quietly, its contents cooling with every passing second. I gripped the wheel tighter, my knuckles widening. Just another run, I whispered, though the words felt flimsy, like a prayer no one was listening to. The road stretched on, and I drove deeper into the night, unaware that I was already crossing a line, one that separated the mundane from the unknown, the routine from the nightmare waiting to unfold. Part 2, The First Crack, a delivery too quiet. Willow Lane swallowed sound like a predator devouring prey. As I eased my car down its narrow stretch, the tires whispered against the cracked asphalt, the only noise in a world that felt unnervingly still. The houses on either side stood like silent sentinels, their darkened windows staring blankly, as if they'd seen too much to care. I squinted at the mailbox numbers glinting faintly in my headlights, 43, 45, then, at last, 47. My destination. The house loomed at the end of a short driveway, its silhouette jagged against the moonless sky, a structure that seemed to crouch rather than stand. I killed the engine, and the sudden absence of its rumble left me exposed, like a diver plunging into uncharted depths. The bag of food sat on the passenger seat, its paper crinkled and slightly greasy, a mundane anchor in the creeping unease that prickled my skin. I grabbed it, my fingers brushing the receipt taped to the side. Burger, fries, no drink. Customer, J. Smith. The name was as generic as they came, yet it gnawed at me, a placeholder, a mask. My pulse tapped a restless rhythm in my throat, and I cursed myself for letting the night get under my skin. It's just a drop-off, I said aloud, my voice thin and unconvincing in the car's stale air. Stepping out, I felt the chill of the night wrap around me, sharper now, like a blade pressed lightly against my neck. The air carried a faint tang of mildew, as if the street itself was decaying, exhaling its rot into the darkness. I slung the bag over my shoulder and scanned the house. It was a 2-story relic, its siding weathered to a sickly gray, the kind of place that might have been charming once but now sagged under the weight of neglect. The porch was a jumble of warped boards, and a single bulb hung above the door, unlit, its glass cracked like a dead eye. No lights glowed inside, no flicker of a TV or hum of life. Just silence, heavy and absolute. My sneakers crunched on the gravel as I approached, each step deliberate, as if I could outrun the instinct screaming at me to turn back. I wasn't a coward, not usually, but something about this place felt wrong, like a note played out of tune. Maybe it was the way the shadows seemed to pool in the corners of the yard, thicker than they should be, or the faint creak of a shutter swaying in the breeze, though I felt no wind. My mind flashed to the diner, to Marge's hesitation when I'd mentioned Willow Lane. Quiet area, she'd said, but this wasn't quiet, it was lifeless. I reached the porch, the wood groaning under my weight, and pressed the doorbell. A dull buzz echoed inside, swallowed quickly by the house's cavernous hush. I waited, shifting from foot to foot, the bag growing heavier in my grip. No footsteps, no rustle of curtains. Nothing. I knocked, my knuckles rapping sharply against the door's peeling paint. Hello. Delivery, I called, my voice louder than I intended, cracking the silence like glass. Still nothing. I glanced at the receipt again, hoping for some clue, but it offered only the same sparse details. J. Smith. Lives alone. Fine, I muttered, crouching to set the bag on the doormat, a faded thing that might have once said welcome but now just looked tired. My job was simple, drop and go. No one answered, no tip, no problem. But as I straightened, a flicker of movement caught my eye, a shadow shifting behind the door's frosted glass panel. It was brief, barely a silhouette, but it sent a jolt through me, like touching a live wire. I froze, my breath catching, straining to see more. The glass was too murky, the shadow gone as quickly as it appeared. "Hey, anyone there?" I tried again, softer this time, my voice barely above a whisper. No response. I stepped closer, my reflection distorted in the glass, a warped version of myself staring back. My hand hovered over the doorknob, an impulse I couldn't explain urging me to test it. What was I expecting? A customer too shy to answer? A prankster messing with me? Or something else, something I didn't want to name? I pulled back, shaking my head. "Get a grip, Alex," I told myself, the words a flimsy shield against the growing dread pooling in my gut. I turned to leave, but my eyes snagged on the window to the left of the door, its curtains parted just enough to reveal a sliver of the interior. Curiosity, damnable, reckless curiosity, clawed at me. I leaned closer, my breath fogging the glass, and peered inside. The room beyond was shrouded in darkness, but I could make out vague shapes, a sagging couch, a coffee table littered with papers, a floor lamp tipped over like it had been abandoned mid-fight. And then, in the far corner, something else, a figure, tall and unnaturally still, blending into the shadows like it belonged there. My heart lurched, a frantic thud against my ribs. I squinted, trying to convince myself it was a coat rack, a mannequin, anything but what my instincts screamed it was. But the figure didn't move, didn't breathe, just stood there, its outline too human, too deliberate. The receipt's note flashed in my mind, "Lives alone." If J. Smith was alone, then who, or what, was that? I stumbled back, my heel catching on a loose board, the bag forgotten on the mat. My phone vibrated in my pocket, a sudden buzz that felt like a scream in the silence. I fumbled for it, my hands clumsy with adrenaline, and glanced at the screen. A text from an unknown number, "Leave it. Don't look back." The words glowed starkly, each letter a needle pricking my nerves. I stared, my mouth dry, my mind racing to make sense of it. Was this J. Smith? A neighbor? A glitch? But the timing, the shadow, the message, it was too precise, too coordinated. "Who's there?" I demanded, spinning toward the door, my voice sharper now, edged with fear. The house stared back, impassive, its silence louder than any answer. I clutched the phone tighter, my thumb hovering over the call button. Who would I even dial? The cops? Jake? And say what? That a delivery job felt creepy. I could hear Jake's laugh already. "Dude, you're spooked by a dark house. Lay off the horror podcasts." But this wasn't a podcast. This was real, or at least real enough to make my skin crawl. I backed toward the driveway, my eyes locked on the window, half expecting the figure to lurch forward, to press its face against the glass. Nothing moved, but the absence of action was worse, like the house was waiting, biding its time. My car was only steps away, its familiar shape a beacon in the gloom, but every instinct told me not to turn my back. Not yet. I forced myself to breathe, to think. Maybe the figure was a roommate, unlisted on the app. Maybe the text was a standard automated message, poorly timed. But my gut churned with a truth I couldn't articulate, a sense that I'd crossed an invisible line, that Willow Lane wasn't just a street but a stage, and I was an actor who didn't know the script. My phone buzzed again, another text from the same number, "Go now." 2 words, blunt and commanding, like a parent scolding a child. I swallowed hard, my throat tight, and glanced at the bag on the mat. It looked pitiful there, a relic of normalcy in a scene that felt anything but. I wanted to grab it, to undo the delivery, but the thought of stepping back onto that porch made my stomach twist. Instead, I moved toward my car, my steps measured, deliberate, like a man walking a tightrope. The gravel crunched underfoot, each sound amplified in the oppressive quiet. I kept my eyes on the house, on the window, on the door, waiting for something, anything, to break the spell. My hand found the car door handle, the metal cool and grounding against my palm. I yanked it open, sliding inside with a speed that betrayed my calm facade. The interior smelled of stale coffee and vinyl, a comforting contrast to the mildew outside. I locked the doors, the click loud in the confined space, and gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles pale. My phone sat in its cradle, the text still glowing on the screen. Go now. I wanted to obey, to peel out of Willow Lane and never look back, but a part of me, stubborn, foolish, resisted. I'd never walked away from a delivery before, not even the sketchy ones. Quitting now felt like admitting defeat, like letting the night win. I glanced at the house one last time, its silhouette etched against the sky like a warning. The window was empty now, the figure gone, or had it ever been there? Doubt crept in, a sly whisper that maybe I'd imagined it, that fatigue and darkness were playing tricks. But the texts were real, undeniable, their words burning into my thoughts. Don't look back. Go now. I started the engine, the roar shattering the silence, a defiant cry against whatever this place was. The headlights sliced through the dark, illuminating the driveway, the mat, the bag still sitting there like an offering. I shifted into gear, my foot hovering over the gas, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, not just by the house, but by something deeper, something that knew my name. As I pulled away, the rearview mirror caught a glimpse of 47, Willow Lane shrinking behind me, its shape dissolving into the night. My heart pounded, a drumbeat of relief and dread, and I told myself I was done, that I'd never come back. But even then, I knew the truth, Willow Lane wasn't finished with me. Not yet. Part 3, The Unraveling, a Message That Binds. The car's headlights carved a frail path through the darkness, but Willow Lane seemed to devour the light, its edges closing in like the jaws of some ancient beast. I pressed harder on the gas, the engine's growl a desperate counterpoint to the silence that clung to me, thick and suffocating. My hands trembled on the wheel, slick with sweat despite the night's bite. The texts, leave it. Don't look back. Go now, burned in my mind, each word a splinter lodged deep, impossible to ignore. I wanted to believe they were a prank, a glitch, anything but what my gut screamed they were, a warning I was too stubborn to heed. The rearview mirror taunted me, its empty frame reflecting only the road behind, a road that felt less like an escape and more like a tether pulling me back to 47, Willow Lane. I kept my eyes forward, afraid of what I might see if I glanced too long. The figure in the house, that motionless shadow, haunted my thoughts, its presence lingering like a bruise. Was it real? Or was I unraveling, my exhaustion spinning nightmares from the mundane? I clenched my jaw, forcing the doubt aside. Real or not, I was done. I'd left the bag, fulfilled my part. Whatever game this was, I wasn't playing. My phone sat in its cradle, its screen dim but alive, a silent conspirator in the night's strangeness. I reached for it, my fingers hesitating, as if touching it might summon another message. The urge to call someone, anyone, clawed at me, but who? My boss at the delivery service would laugh, tell me to stop wasting time. Jake, my roommate, would mock me for jumping at shadows. And the police? What could I say? Officer, I saw something creepy during a delivery, and I got weird texts. They'd file me under, overworked and paranoid, and move on. Instead, I swiped the screen, opening the app to mark the delivery complete. The interface was sluggish, the loading icon spinning like a mocking eye. Come on, I muttered, my voice hoarse, fraying at the edges. The app finally refreshed, but the order details were gone, no address, no customer name, no record of Willow Lane. It was as if the job had never existed, erased from digital memory. My stomach twisted, a cold knot tightening. I tapped frantically, searching for any trace, but the screen mocked me with its blankness. A sudden chime broke the silence, shrill and jarring. My heart lurched as the phone lit up with another text, this one from the same unknown number, you looked. The words hit like a punch, stealing my breath. I slammed on the brakes, the car jerking to a stop in the middle of the road. The tires squealed, a fleeting cry swallowed by the night. You looked. How could they know? I hadn't told anyone about peering through the window, about the shadow that wasn't supposed to be there. My mind raced, grasping for explanations, a hidden camera, a neighbor watching, a sick joke, but none fit. The truth was uglier, a whisper I couldn't silence, something knew me, saw me, and wasn't letting go. "Who are you?" I shouted, my voice bouncing off the car's interior, raw with a mix of fear and defiance. The phone stayed silent, its screen glowing with the accusation. I wanted to hurl it out the window, to break free of its hold, but my hands betrayed me, clutching it tighter. My reflection stared back from the darkened glass, eyes wide, face pale, a stranger wearing my skin. I barely recognized myself, this version of Alex who'd walked into a delivery job and stumbled into something else entirely. The road ahead was empty, flanked by gnarled trees that seemed to lean closer, their branches clawing at the sky. I forced myself to breathe, to think. Maybe I'd misread the situation. Maybe the texts were automated, part of some new app feature I hadn't noticed. But the timing was too precise, the words too personal. "You looked." It wasn't just a message, it was a judgment, a claim on my actions, as if I'd broken an unspoken rule. I restarted the car, the engine's rumble a shaky reassurance. I needed to get out of here, back to the city's pulse, where lights and noise could drown out this madness. But as I eased forward, a new sound emerged, a faint tapping, rhythmic and deliberate, coming from the trunk. My blood ran cold, my grip tightening on the wheel. It was soft at first, like a finger testing a drum, but it grew insistent, a cadence that matched my heartbeat. Tap. 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 I told myself it was the car, a loose part rattling, but the lie crumbled under the weight of my fear. I pulled over again, this time onto the shoulder, the gravel crunching like bones under the tires. The tapping stopped, leaving a silence that pressed against my eardrums. I sat there, frozen, my breath shallow, every nerve screaming to stay put. But the not knowing was worse, a poison spreading through my thoughts. What if someone was back there? What if the delivery wasn't just a job but a setup, a trap I'd walked into blindly? I glanced at the phone, half expecting another text, but it remained silent, its screen now dark. The irony wasn't lost on me, I'd spent months complaining about the monotony of this gig, craving something to break the routine. Now, I'd give anything for boredom, for a night without shadows and messages that knew too much. My hand moved to the door handle, then stopped. Opening the trunk meant facing whatever was, or wasn't, there. Ignoring it meant driving on, carrying the unknown with me. "Get it together," I whispered, my voice a plea more than a command. I thought of my mom, her voice calm and steady when I was a kid scared of the dark. "Fear's just a story you tell yourself, Alex. Change the ending." But this wasn't a story I could rewrite, not when the words felt like they were writing me. Still, I couldn't sit here forever, paralyzed by what-ifs. I grabbed the flashlight from the glove compartment, its weight a small comfort, and stepped out. The night was a living thing, its chill seeping through my jacket, its silence wrapping around me like a shroud. The trees loomed taller now, their shadows stretching across the road, jagged and hungry. I moved to the rear of the car, each step heavy, deliberate, as if I could anchor myself to reality. The trunk's latch gleamed faintly, a dull silver promise of answers, or horrors. I gripped the flashlight tighter, its beam cutting a narrow path through the dark, and popped the trunk. It was empty. Just a spare tire, a crumpled blanket, and a bottle of windshield fluid rolling loose. Relief flooded me, sharp and fleeting, but it soured quickly. The tapping had been real, I'd heard it, felt it in my bones. I swept the flashlight around, half expecting to catch a figure darting into the trees, but the night offered nothing but its own impenetrable veil. I slammed the trunk shut, the sound echoing like a gunshot, and hurried back to the driver's seat. Inside, the car felt smaller, the air stale with my own panic. I locked the doors again, a ritual that felt increasingly futile. My phone buzzed once more, and I flinched, dread pooling in my chest. Another text, not yet. The words were cryptic, maddeningly vague, yet they carried a weight that pinned me in place. Not yet what? Not safe. Not free. My mind spun, conjuring images of the shadow in the house, its stillness now a threat I couldn't shake. I needed to move, to put distance between me and this cursed street, but my hands shook as I gripped the wheel. The road stretched on, a black ribbon leading back to the city, or so I hoped. Doubt gnawed at me, a voice whispering that I wasn't escaping, that Willow Lane had marked me, claimed me in ways I didn't understand. I thought of the bag I'd left behind, that pitiful offering on the mat, and wondered if it was more than food, if it was bait, and I was the catch. "Hey, Alex, you're okay," I said aloud, my voice trembling, a lifeline to sanity. But the lie was thin, fraying with every mile. I glanced at the dashboard clock, 12:32 a.m., and realized time itself felt slippery, as if the night was stretching to keep me here. The city's lights were nowhere in sight, the road flanked only by wilderness now, its edges blurring into a void. My phone vibrated again, a low hum that felt like a pulse. I didn't want to look, didn't want to give it power, but my hand moved on its own, drawn to the screen like a moth to flame. The newest text was a single word, closer. My breath hitched, my eyes darting to the mirrors, the windows, the empty seats. Closer to what? To the city? To safety? Or to something else, something that had been watching since I stepped onto that porch? I floored the gas, the car lurching forward, its roar a feeble defiance against the night's grip. The road twisted ahead, unfamiliar now, its curves sharper than they should be. My heart pounded, a frantic drumbeat, and I clung to one thought: get out, get away, get anywhere but here. But deep down, a darker truth took root: whatever had started at 47, Willow Lane wasn't done with me. It was following, waiting, and every mile only brought it nearer. Part 4, The Reckoning, a passenger unseen. The road twisted like a serpent under my tires, each curve a betrayal of the path I thought I knew. My foot pressed the gas pedal to the floor, the engine's roar a hollow rebellion against the night's suffocating grip. The word closer pulsed in my skull, a taunt from the last text that refused to fade. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles ached, my eyes darting between the windshield and the mirrors, searching for something, anything, to anchor me to reality. But reality was slipping, unraveling like a threadbare cloth, and I was falling through the gaps. The wilderness flanking the road had grown wilder, its trees no longer merely looming but alive, their gnarled limbs weaving a canopy that choked out the sky. The headlights flickered, their beams stuttering as if reluctant to reveal what lay ahead. My breath came in shallow bursts, fogging the edges of my vision, each inhale laced with the acrid tang of panic. I was running, but to where? The city's glow should have been visible by now, a beacon of neon and noise, yet the horizon offered only darkness, an endless void that swallowed hope whole. My phone lay silent in its cradle, a traitor that had spoken too much and now said nothing. I hated it, hated its cold glass, its cryptic messages, its power to unravel me with a single word. But I couldn't look away, couldn't shake the dread that it would buzz again, delivering another shard of truth I wasn't ready to face. Closer. The word wasn't just a warning, it was a promise, a vow that something was drawing near, and I was powerless to outrun it. A sudden jolt rocked the car, a lurch that sent my heart into my throat. The steering wheel jerked in my hands, the tires skidding against something unseen, a pothole, a branch, a trick of the road. I fought for control, my arms straining, the car fishtailing before settling back into its frantic course. What the hell was that? I gasped, my voice a stranger's, high and brittle. I scanned the road, but it was empty, the asphalt gleaming wetly under my lights, though no rain had fallen. My pulse hammered, a relentless drumbeat, and I forced myself to ease off the gas, to breathe, to think. But thinking was a trap. My mind spiraled, conjuring fragments of the night, the house's hollow silence, the shadow's unnatural stillness, the texts that knew too much. I'd been a fool to look through that window, to defy the warning. Curiosity wasn't just reckless, it was a debt, and now I was paying the price. I thought of my life before tonight, mundane, predictable, a grind of deliveries and deadlines. I'd craved a spark, a story worth telling. Now, I had one, and it was writing itself in blood. The air inside the car grew heavy, thick with a presence I couldn't name. It wasn't a smell, not exactly, but a weight, like the moment before a storm breaks. I adjusted the rearview mirror, a reflex born of paranoia, and froze. The mirror wasn't empty. A shape sat in the back seat, a silhouette, faint but undeniable, its edges blurred as if drawn in smoke. My breath stopped, my body locking into place, every nerve screaming to look away. But I couldn't. The shape was human, yet not, too still, too wrong, its presence a violation of the world's rules. No, I whispered, the word a prayer, a denial. My eyes flicked to the road, then back to the mirror, praying it was a trick of the light, a shadow cast by the trees. But it was there, steady and unyielding, a passenger I hadn't invited. Its head was tilted slightly, as if listening, though no sound came from it, no breath, no rustle of movement. Just silence, deeper than the night itself, a void that pulled at my sanity. I swerved, the car veering dangerously close to the ditch, my hands shaking so violently I could barely steer. "Who are you?" I shouted, my voice cracking, raw with terror. The shape didn't answer, didn't move, but its presence grew heavier, pressing against my spine like a cold hand. I slammed my foot on the brake, the car screeching to a halt, gravel spraying like shrapnel. I twisted in my seat, forcing myself to face it, to prove it wasn't real. The back seat was empty. No figure, no shadow, just worn upholstery and a stray energy drink can rolling on the floor. Relief surged, bitter and fleeting, chased by a wave of self-loathing. "You're losing it, Alex," I muttered, my voice trembling, a lifeline to the rational world I was slipping from. I ran a hand over my face, my skin clammy, my pulse a chaotic rhythm. I'd seen it, hadn't I? Or was the night rewriting my senses, turning fear into phantoms? I turned back to the road, my hands still shaking, and caught a flicker in the side mirror. A glint, brief but sharp, like eyes catching the light. My heart stuttered, and I jerked the mirror to face it, but it showed only darkness. "Stop it," I told myself, louder now, as if volume could banish the madness. I wanted to laugh, to mock my own panic, but the sound lodged in my throat, choked by the truth I couldn't ignore, I wasn't alone. The phone buzzed, a low vibration that felt like a heartbeat against the dashboard. I flinched, my body recoiling as if it were a snake. The screen lit up, another text from the unknown number, "Stay." One word, stark and commanding, its simplicity more terrifying than any threat. Stay. Here, on this cursed road, with a shadow that wasn't there. My mind rebelled, but my body obeyed, frozen in the driver's seat, pinned by a force I couldn't name. "No way," I said, my voice a defiant snarl. I grabbed the phone, my thumb jabbing at the power button, desperate to silence it. But the screen stayed alive, the word glowing like a brand, "Stay." I hurled the phone to the passenger seat, where it landed with a dull thud, its light casting eerie shadows across the car's interior. "I'm not staying," I spat, though the words felt hollow, a challenge to something that didn't play by my rules. I shifted into gear, the car lurching forward, but the road seemed to resist, its surface slick and uncooperative, as if the earth itself were conspiring to keep me. The headlights dimmed again, their beams narrowing to frail slivers, barely piercing the darkness. A low hum filled the car, not the engine, not the radio, but something deeper, a vibration that seemed to rise from the seats, the dashboard, the air itself. It was a sound that wasn't a sound, a presence that wasn't a presence, and it clawed at my nerves, shredding what little composure I had left. My eyes flicked to the rearview mirror again, unable to resist, and this time, the shape was clearer. It sat directly behind me, its form sharper now, a figure cloaked in shadow, its face obscured but its gaze palpable, boring into the back of my skull. My scream caught in my throat, a strangled gasp, and I swerved hard, the car skidding across the road. The figure didn't flinch, didn't shift, its stillness a mockery of my panic. "Get out!" I yelled, my voice breaking, a plea to whatever this was. I slammed on the brakes again, the car shuddering to a stop, and twisted around, flashlight in hand, its beam slicing through the back seat. Empty. Again, empty. But the hum persisted, louder now, a chorus of whispers that weren't words but intentions, urging me to stay, to surrender. I clutched the flashlight like a talisman, its metal warm from my grip, the only thing tethering me to reality. I was crying now, I realized, hot tears streaking my face, a betrayal of the toughness I'd clung to. I thought of my childhood, of nights spent hiding under blankets, convinced the dark held monsters. My mom had always been there, her hand on my shoulder, her voice a shield. "Nothing's out there, Alex. You're safe." But she was wrong, wasn't she? The dark did hold monsters, and they'd found me, here on a road that wasn't a road, in a night that wasn't just night. The phone buzzed again, relentless, and I grabbed it, driven by fury more than fear. Another text, "You can't." "Can't what?" "Leave. Fight. Understand." The words were a cage, each one tightening the bars around me. I wanted to scream, to smash the phone, to drive until the world made sense again, but my body was heavy, my limbs leaden, as if the car itself were holding me hostage. The hum crescendoed, a wave of soundless noise that pressed against my eardrums, and the figure appeared again, this time in the passenger seat, inches away, its form a shifting mass of shadow and intent. I didn't look, didn't dare, but I felt it, its weight bending the air, its presence a violation of everything I knew. My hand fumbled for the door handle, instinct overriding reason, but the lock wouldn't budge, the mechanism dead under my fingers. "Leave me alone," I sobbed, my voice a child's, small and broken. The car shook, a violent tremor that wasn't the engine, wasn't the road, but something deeper, something alive. The headlights died completely, plunging me into darkness, and the hum became a roar, a wordless command that filled my skull, my veins, my soul. I was trapped, not just in the car but in the night, in the story that had claimed me. The figure was everywhere now, behind me, beside me, within me, a shadow that wasn't just shadow, a passenger that wasn't just there. And as the darkness swallowed me whole, I knew the truth, I'd never been driving away from Willow Lane. I'd been driving toward it, toward the reckoning that waited, patient and inevitable. Part 5, The Aftermath, a Dawn That Lies. Light crept into my world like a thief, soft and uninvited, pulling me from a void I couldn't name. I blinked, my eyes stinging as the blur of consciousness sharpened into shapes, a dashboard, a cracked windshield, the dull gleam of a key dangling in the ignition. I was slumped in the driver's seat, my neck stiff, my body heavy, as if I'd been poured into it rather than born. The car smelled of dust and something sweeter, like overripe fruit left to fester. Outside, a pale dawn smeared the horizon, its colors muted, as if the world were apologizing for the night. I sat up, wincing at the ache in my shoulders, my mind groping for fragments of what had come before. The road, the hum, the shadow that wasn't a shadow, they flickered in my thoughts, jagged and elusive, like pieces of a dream I'd already half forgotten. But they weren't dreams. They couldn't be. My hands, still curled around the steering wheel, bore the evidence, nails bitten raw, skin scraped as if I'd clawed at something unyielding. I swallowed, my throat dry, and tasted fear, metallic and lingering. The car was parked on a grassy verge, flanked by a field of wildflowers that swayed in a breeze I couldn't feel. Beyond them, a highway stretched, its surface worn but familiar, dotted with the occasional glint of passing traffic. The city's skyline shimmered in the distance, a haze of steel and glass that promised normalcy. But normalcy felt like a lie, a mask stretched thin over a truth I wasn't ready to face. Where was I? How had I gotten here? The questions gnawed at me, each one a splinter under my skin. My phone lay on the passenger seat, its screen blank, a silent witness to the night's unraveling. I reached for it, my fingers trembling, half expecting it to burn or vanish. It was cold, heavier than it should have been, like a stone plucked from a riverbed. I pressed the power button, bracing for another message, another command, but the screen stayed dark, its battery drained or its will exhausted. I set it down, relief warring with unease. No texts, no proof, but no escape from the weight they'd left behind. I stepped out of the car, the morning air sharp against my face, carrying the scent of dew and asphalt. My sneakers sank into the damp grass, grounding me in a way that felt both comforting and foreign. The field was alive with small sounds, crickets fading, birds stirring, the distant hum of a truck, but they felt distant, like a performance staged for someone else. I turned back to the car, its frame battered, the hood speckled with dirt as if it had fought its own battle through the night. The trunk was closed, the doors locked, yet I couldn't shake the sense that it wasn't empty, that something lingered in its corners, watching. Alex? I whispered my own name, testing it, as if saying it could tether me to who I'd been before Willow Lane. But the name felt hollow, a label for a stranger who'd driven into the dark and come out changed. I thought of the person I'd been yesterday, tired, restless, chasing tips and tomorrows. That Alex was gone, replaced by this one, marked by a night that refused to explain itself. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but the field swallowed my silence, indifferent to my need. I circled the car, my steps slow, deliberate, searching for clues. A scratch ran along the driver's side, fresh and deep, as if something had grazed it with purpose. I traced it with my fingertip, the metal cool and jagged, and felt a shiver crawl up my spine. Had I hit something? Or had something struck me, claiming a piece of my sanctuary? I glanced at the highway, its flow of cars a lifeline to the world I knew, but the thought of driving, of returning, felt like stepping back into a trap. My gaze fell on a crumpled piece of paper tucked under the windshield wiper, its edges fluttering like a trapped moth. I plucked it free, my hands unsteady, and unfolded it. It was a receipt, faded but legible: burger, fries, no drink. J. Smith. 47, Willow Lane. My breath caught, a knife twist in my chest. I'd left that bag on the porch, hadn't I? I'd abandoned it, fled the house, the road, the shadow. Yet here it was, a relic of the night, returned to me like a debt unpaid. I crumpled the receipt and shoved it into my pocket, my heart racing. The field, the highway, the dawn, they were all wrong, a stage set too carefully, their normalcy a mockery. I climbed back into the car, slamming the door, the sound of defiance I didn't feel. The key turned smoothly, the engine sputtering to life, and I pulled onto the highway, merging with the flow of strangers who'd never know what I'd seen. But their ignorance wasn't safety, it was a blindfold, and I'd torn mine off. The city grew closer, its towers rising like sentinels, but they offered no comfort. I kept my eyes on the road, avoiding the mirrors, afraid of what they might show. My phone remained silent, but its silence was loud, a presence in itself. I thought of calling Jake, of spilling everything, the house, the texts, the passenger that wasn't there, but the words felt too heavy, too raw. He'd laugh, or worse, he'd believe me, and then what? We'd both be haunted, tethered to a truth neither of us could unlearn. Hey, man, you good? I imagined Jake's voice, casual but concerned, the way he'd lean against the kitchen counter, beer in hand. I wanted to say yes, to pretend the night was just a bad shift, but my mouth stayed shut, my lips pressed tight. I wasn't good. I wasn't anything I recognized. The highway blurred, not from speed but from tears I hadn't noticed, hot and useless against the ache in my chest. I pulled into a gas station on the city's edge, its neon sign buzzing like a trapped insect. The lot was empty save for a rusty pickup parked crookedly, its driver nowhere in sight. I killed the engine and sat there, the world outside moving on without me. A woman emerged from the convenience store, her arms full of snacks, her laughter cutting through the morning's haze. She was young, maybe my age, her life untouched by shadows. I envied her, hated her, needed her normalcy to be mine again. I stepped out, the receipt burning a hole in my pocket, and walked to the store. The clerk, a bored teenager with earbuds dangling, barely glanced up as I grabbed a coffee, its heat a small rebellion against the cold inside me. "Rough night?" he asked, scanning the cup, his voice flat but not unkind. "You could say that," I replied, my voice rough, a stranger's echo. He nodded, uninterested, and I wanted to grab him, to scream that rough didn't begin to cover it, that I'd seen things he'd never dream of. But I paid and left, the coffee bitter on my tongue, a reminder that some things couldn't be washed away. Back in the car, I checked my phone again, plugging it into the charger. The screen flickered, then came alive, but the messages were gone, no stay, no closer, no trace of the night's terror. The app showed my last delivery as a pizza drop-off hours before Willow Lane, a lie so seamless it chilled me. I opened the maps, typing 47, Willow Lane with shaking fingers, but the search returned nothing, no street, no record, no proof. It was as if the place had folded itself away, a secret the world refused to acknowledge. I drove home, the city waking around me, joggers, commuters, kids chasing buses. Their lives were threads in a tapestry I no longer fit, their ease a language I'd forgotten. My apartment building loomed ahead, its brick facade dull under the rising sun. I parked, my hands lingering on the wheel, reluctant to let go. Inside, Jake would be sprawled on the couch, oblivious, his world untouched. I envied him, but I couldn't go back, not fully. "Hey, Alex, where you been?" Jake's voice echoed in my mind, a ghost of normalcy I craved but couldn't reach. I climbed the stairs, each step a battle, and unlocked the door. The apartment smelled of stale pizza and laundry, a sanctuary that felt like a museum of someone else's life. Jake was asleep, snoring softly, a beer can tipped over on the coffee table. I stood there, watching him, a stranger in my own home. I pulled the receipt from my pocket, its ink smudged but stubborn, and set it on the counter. It was real, tangible, a lifeline to the truth I couldn't share. I thought of burning it, of erasing the last piece of Willow Lane, but my hand wouldn't move. Destroying it wouldn't undo what I'd seen, what I'd felt. The shadow, the hum, the weight, they were part of me now, etched into my bones, a story I'd carry forever. I sank onto the couch, the coffee cold in my hands, and stared at the window. The city pulsed outside, alive and indifferent, its rhythm a mockery of my stillness. I wanted to believe I'd escaped, that dawn had broken the night's hold, but a whisper lingered, soft and insidious, "You can't." The words weren't on my phone, weren't in the air, but they were there, woven into the silence, a promise that Willow Lane wasn't gone, it was waiting, patient, eternal. I closed my eyes, exhaustion pulling me under, and saw it again, the figure, not behind me, not beside me, but within, a shadow cast by my own soul. I'd driven away, but I hadn't left. The delivery was complete, but the debt remained, unpaid and unending. And as sleep claimed me, I knew one thing for certain, the night wasn't over. It never would be.